So, it's an interesting movie. So we just watched Extinction, which was new this year, 2018 on Netflix. It throws a curveball at you. Like I said, you think it's going to be a typical alien invasion movie, and then it throws that massive curveball at your ass, and we're not going to put the spoilers. Well, we are going to put spoilers, but whatever. So, like I've said with a lot of the other movies we've watched, turn the storyline around, turn this perspective around, get rid of the Hollywood propaganda type shit. So let's say, for example, in this, the portrayal is that the people that you follow through the storyline are synthetic. They're AI, robots, synthetic beings created by the humans. And that's just a prime Hollywood trigger bullshit piece to it, right? Like, like that's how you sell shit, is you got to hit the people, the things that trigger everyone. But let's just turn this around a little bit. What if they're not synthetic, computer synthetic? What if they're genetically modified, genetically created beings that were created by the original race on the planet, or let's not even say the original race on the planet. Let's say there's a race of beings on the planet who are running the planet, and they create these genetic beings and create them to be servants, create them for all the menial tasks that they don't want to do. And then those beings, those servants, those lesser than, by their perception, wake up and actually develop to be fully conscious, emotionally conscious, etc. Okay? And a war comes. A war between the genetically created beings who have been created for bullshit jobs and to be lesser than. And they do wake up to the fact of, hey, wait a second. We're alive too. We have emotions too. We have needs. We have things that we want, etc. Why do we have to have this life of servitude? Why are we being treated like second-class citizens, quite literally? And they rise up and they toss the creator beings, if you will, out and take over. And in doing so, to forget what they've been through, their minds are wiped so that they have no memory of who they are or their story or how they were created, etc. Okay? Oh, just think about this story now from that perspective. Because, well, this is it. Like, I should have thrown in things like we have the story of Atlantis, right? We have stories that have been rolled out. And if you look at some of the movies we've watched, things like Stargate, they take over a primitive planet and genetically alter the people to be servants, to do the menial tasks, the mining that they don't want to do, etc. That's why I wanted to watch this movie, because this movie, when you drop the Hollywood rhetoric bullshit and actually look at it from a different perspective, it's really fucking interesting. I also thought the use of the word of Mars, as that's where they were living, was interesting. But, pick a planet. Saturn, perhaps. To just, throw it out there, perhaps Saturn. So yeah, it's an interesting movie. It forces you to all of a sudden think differently. what I really liked is the fact of you get the young human, the soldier, who has no knowledge of what these synthetics are. He has no firsthand knowledge. He was born in a cult. It was generations ago to him. It's nothing but story and history that he's been told, propaganda that he's been told. They're animals. They're just savage animals, right? And he says, I didn't come down here to kill children and families. And if you remember at the one of the opening scenes of the battle scene, when the little girl's hiding under the table, he looks at her and he gets down on his hands and knees and looks at her. And he's just reaching out to touch her when the dad comes and attacks him. Because in that moment, he sees and realizes, oh my God, these aren't savages. This is a little girl crying under a table. It could be any child that I know back home crying in terror under a table. And he has that moment of like, I've been fucking sold a pack of lies. He witnesses the family. He witnesses the love. He witnesses all the emotional spectrum through this family and realizes they are fully conscious. They're not savages. They're not whatever he's been taught that they are. They are living beings, conscious beings. So the story is really fucking interesting, the way it plays out and the concepts. So yeah, drop the Hollywood bullshit and kind of look at it from a different perspective. So, anyone want to add their 2 cents to this?
Yeah, I like your interpretation, Danny. Also, in the chat, it was mentioned. I mentioned it too. That's in a way, it's kind of a retelling of what we've heard, the mythical story, so to speak, of Atlantis.
Yep.
You know, you take your twist on it and transpose that to the Atlantis story, and we sit back or at least I sit back and I say, I like the way you did that, and I agree with you. Actually,
we've had this story, right? I mean, if you think about it, we've had these stories, and the story runs through our own history. The Europeans come to North America to fight the savages. They're just savages. They're unhuman. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have watched the movie The Mission, which was done in the 80s. Oh, fuck. But if you're going to watch it, be prepared, have tissue. You are going to fucking cry. And it's Jeremy Irons and oh God. And basically it's the story of the Spaniards, the missionaries first going to South America and conquering South America. And the church thing is like, they're just savages. They don't have souls. So we can just go in, wipe them out, and take what we want. And the first missionaries who get there, who lived with these savages, realize, no, they're beautiful. Like, they've got a culture. They're beautiful beings. They have this whole thing. And at one point they teach, this bishop is coming to give the final word. And Nick, what are you doing? Don't know what Nick's doing back there. They give the final word on whether or not they're going to just slaughter them all. And they dress them all up in like proper clothing, the natives. And they sing one of the famous, I don't know if it's the Ave Maria or the Alleluia chorus, but they teach, and it's like stunning. And it doesn't matter because they're trying to show them these people actually are they're people. They're actual people. They have souls. They have spirits, etc. And of course, the church comes in and wipes them all out and kills everyone off. So this story is a really kind of like the continuous repeat of our history. What do we go? Not colonization, colonialization. Thank you. That's the word. Where they go into these places, they go into Africa, South America, Asia, etc., and they go in and they take over. And they always treat whoever they're taking over as the savages. Look at Australia. Do you know that it was still law on the Australian books still had the law that you could shoot an Aborigine person? They were considered fauna. They were considered animals until like 65, 66, perhaps even early 70s. That you could go and shoot one and hang it up from the back of your truck.
You know
That was
what's
Australia.
There's so much more than just culture, than just what we know of family and soul and emotions, but there's old culture that we have been robbed of all our cultural roots. It's all been diluted, all been Disney-fied. I use that term. All designed by Disney, no matter where they're from. First question they ask you before they know your name, where you from? Expecting to hear political fiction as reply. And that's what we're taught. That's the way we're used to replying also. Although we know that we all look the same, from the baseball cap to the Nike sneakers, it's all the same. And these cultures still have really sane roots, you know.
Yeah. But this is the whole thing. It's a continuation of and this story to me is a continuation of this same cyclical story, if you will. Like I said, they turn it into synthetics so that it really makes people, oh, AI, because of course we've all been programmed with this through Hollywood and the media. It was nice. Jules just said it was in 1967 they were first included in the census. Yeah. Who was that, love? Is that Teresa?
I'm not sure if I'm going to say this. Yeah, hey.
Hi, darling.
Okay, hi. I'm going to try to get this out correctly, and it's probably not new news, but something occurred to me today through that video that I think it was Jenny put up, and I was looking at, and then I saw something else about the Tartara, you know, the things that we've been talking about. There's some young guy, I've never seen him before.
Teresa, we've lost you again.
Important because I think I just got cut out.
Yeah, you just got cut out. You said there's some young guy, I've never seen him before.
Okay, it's the video I sent you. I also posted it on the UnFuckers, but it brought something to the forefront of my mind, and it's this, if I can say it correctly. We're looking into the mud things, the time slips, the idea that we don't really realize what time actually is, and then we all talk about consciousness and all that crap too.
Yeah.
Trying to put these words out correctly are going to be difficult, but one of the pieces that this guy was talking about in the history that he's uncovered, this kid, is that when we were created, or we were, you know, whatever it was that happened to create us, there was this, you know, which you guys might know about, where one of the, whoever they were, Ely or whoever, gave us something that would rise our consciousness above them, which created in them a fear, as we kind of know, of us in a way. And he talks about it in a way that once we come to certain consciousness through unity, because that's the only way, because it takes us all to do this. Once we come to this place and we are able to see all these things, like time and all this stuff you've been talking about, then just like in this movie, the fear gets flipped. Then they're the ones, and this is probably why everything happens the way it does, because like Mike says, you know, the Disney-fied thing, the fear, the corruption that's happening that we all see now is because of the fear that they have that we will turn on them once we come so conscious. which this is why I kept saying love. I mean, I know the love and light thing was such a degree that look at what, I mean, am I saying this right? I don't know. I have trouble expressing it in words. You know how the language is, but we know about their fear of us in a way, or I'm not talking about the us and them scenario. That's not what I'm talking about.
I get
it's
it.
more like, okay, so am I making sense?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It was funny. I was talking about this a couple of days ago. We are going through massive amounts of information right now. Like the UnFuckers group, really, we are combing through massive amounts of information as a group. And we're all bringing our pieces to the table and going, oh, this is really, did you guys see this? Because here's another piece that I found really interesting. Here's why. And as a group, we start pulling all these pieces in. And as I always warn, it's very easy to get caught up in the narrative, to get caught up in a particular storyline. So like when we talk about the mud flood stuff, I've had a couple of people say, like, I just don't get it. Okay. Back away from the narrative. And Ann and I talked a little bit about this in the video that we put out. I've got it out this morning from our conversation last night. Step back from the narrative. Step back from the story that has been created to link all these pieces of evidence, etc., together, and just note the evidence itself, the pieces themselves. Non-attachment, exactly, Teresa. Don't attach to a specific angle of the story, right? It's so the mud flood, using that as an example. You know what? Maybe it happened. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it happened as it's been highlighted by so many people. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it was something else. Maybe let's say the evidence of this mud flood is literally just a symptom of something that was much, much bigger. We don't know. What we can derive from it is the fact that it is very, very obvious that the history is a fucking lie. Everything that we're taught continuously seems to come up and we go, it's a fucking lie. So there's points to the history. So I talked about the Max Egan video. I'm sure a bunch of you all watched. It was put in the UnFuckers room, I think, 3 days ago. And he brings up he kind of covers over the whole issue quite nicely in a very short, very concise way. We can look at the evidence that's in front of us. Things like architecture. Things like historical monuments that we see that just don't make sense according to what era they're purportedly built in, etc. We don't have the answers, and we have no way of knowing. Now, we hypothesize pretty strongly that us, are a genetic experiment. We were created by some others, whether you want to call them the Anunnaki or the Dogon or the Numo, or pick a race, and they could all be same word for the same thing or different. We don't know. When we look at these pieces that we bring together, and if we can try to not tie ourselves to a specific storyline, then we can remain more open to the information that's coming forward. Because a lot of the information, I'm watching groups go, well, this isn't true because of this, and there's another group's going, well, this is true because of this. And it's like, but because they're holding so tight to their own narratives, they're not looking at the fact that what they're both talking about could very well be the exact same thing or pieces of the exact same puzzle, but they're caught up in their narrative. So, for example, I love that Max Egan made the comment. He goes, he's talking about the globe, and he's talking about this, and he goes, okay, first, do not now take a shit-bit pissiness about whether it's flat or it's fucking a sphere. This is not a flat earth conversation. The mud flood may have happened. It doesn't matter if it's flat or a sphere. But if you're going to come in here now and argue, well, I said the word globe, therefore you're going to sit here now start arguing flat earth, This is the shit that I'm talking about. The whole point has been completely lost because they want to argue their one piece, their narrative. We need to be open to be able to grab the pieces out of all the different narratives and find the relevant pieces. And that's what I kind of think we're doing with doing our movie night. We're finding little pieces and hints that get dropped in here. That how many movies have we watched over the last 6 months where we've all sat back and gone, oh, wow. And how many of them actually have, again, if you take out the storylines, they have the same narrative. There's pieces all throughout these, whether it's The Fifth Element or Stargate or Jupiter Ascending or Avatar. All of these movies actually contain very much the same pieces. And we can turn around like this one, and we were saying, you can even turn around and say, our own history contains the same pieces. Things like the taking over of the natives and the colonization or colonialization, sorry. So, you know, there's a lot of shit that's playing out right now. And this, yes, Moksha, exactly. The very popular narrative is that of the Anunnaki. And that's why I always say I refuse to use names. That's why I always call them they and them, and I never assign them names. Because when you assign a name and you go Anunnaki, then everyone goes, okay, Anunnaki is this storyline, and we all know what this narrative is, and now you think I'm talking about this narrative when I'm not. I'm just talking about beings that could, maybe, sort of, might be called the Anunnaki. Or they could be called the Timbuktu idiots. We don't fucking know. So this is why I'm always really careful to try to not assign specific names to specific races or beings or entities or anything, because then we end up sometimes unconsciously falling into a storyline, which may or may not be true. But if we can take the points, and put them on the table, we can maybe draw a better, clearer picture. Now, Teresa, it's really interesting what you were talking about, because one of the books, the Apocryphon of John. Do I have it here? I think I've got it here. Hold on. Behind the bookshelf. Is this one with the Apocryphon in it? Okay, with the Apocrypha, okay? Bible with the Apocryphon. If you read, and I'm not going to try and look it up because I'll be damned if I can remember where it is in the book. The Apocryphon of John talks about Yaldabaoth and the whole idea of the creation and how the male and the female creators, if you will, she accidentally created Yaldabaoth by just wanting to create something but not really giving it proper shape and form. And the Yaldabaoth goes off and becomes the warrior god who destroys everything, and he's just a self-righteous, egotistical prick. He's a fucking asshole is what he is. And she tricks him into making man. And then she says to him, and he's like, well, I've made this man out of clay, but I can't seem to make him work. And she tricks him into blowing his breath into this clay man, giving his energy, his genetics, his life force. And in doing so, creates a being that is more powerful than he is. Because
that's funny. It's the same story, but in a different context again that guy's talking about. Yeah.
In a very different context. So this is what I'm saying. We have these pieces, and if we can just remember that they're just pieces, look at the abstract, like I say, kind of stand right back and take out the little pieces out of them, they do create a story. And a lot of times when I do this, I can see where so many narratives that are being put out by so many people, if you stand back, you can see they're all the same narrative or very, very similar narratives. They're just tied up into a story. Yeah, Deb, exactly. Could the Mandela effect and other different memories possibly be us remembering different fractions of ourselves coming together, different fractions of the multiverse sort of thing. Yeah, it could be. It could very well be. I mean, that's what we've hypothesized for a long time now, that we're looking at timelines are seemingly, perhaps, maybe collapsing. And that as they start collapsing, those fractals of ourselves are meeting up and they're all coming together.
That way that you've been talking about, you know, like I've been thinking about that today, how what's happening is we're actually seeing everything instead of it like being linear. It's not so much that, you know, I don't even know if it's like the reset thing or whatever. It's just that we're this is sort of what kind of came about, is the consciousness is rising to the point of being able to see these things.
To look
which
beyond.
Is the challenge. Yeah, we're
to
like,
look beyond the
you know,
programming.
Exactly, and we don't really know how to compute it in our linear mind, but it's like still there. It's still that we're seeing it. We're like putting the pieces together, kind of like them guys in the movie tonight, the robot guys. You know, the ones that were having all these different multi-layered memories and different things that have happened. You know, different timelines and stuff.
They didn't know whether it was before. He didn't know if what he was seeing was
right
going to happen, had already happened. And he said they're not in order. I don't know what happens next because I can't put these visions into order. And how many of us have talked about this? We see these things. And yet you can't say what order it comes in or if it's even from here.
And you hear people, or if it's all actually happening at the same time. I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know, but like what they say, like realities being all not consecutive, but you know, happening simultaneously.
Sorry, Teresa, you're cutting out really bad. We've lost you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was also thinking because, you know, with the stuff that you guys so many are seeing about, you know, the earthquakes and the magnetics and all these kinds of things, and the energy connected somehow to what's happening with our consciousness.
And our memories?
I've really been sort of feeling like I'm in twilight. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like...
No doubt.
I'm sorry.
It's all connected. We live in a holographic world.
Well, this is it. So I was just going to comment on the fact of like...
Hi, Nick.
Yeah, Nick's just taking out the garbage. We have this body, whether we want to call it an avatar, a meat suit, whatever you want to call it. And it runs on electrical and magnetic fields. Okay, so what happens if you take a magnet and you rub it over your hard drive? It can scramble all the information. It can wipe it out. It can scramble it. It can do all kinds of weird things. Okay, I'm wondering with us, and this is something that kind of has been percolating in my brain for the last week or so. With what we're seeing, these massive magnetic, electrical, cosmic, God knows we don't know, amounts of energy waves happening. Who's to say that these are not triggering us in our memory to remember things? For example, kind of like in the movie, their memories were wiped out so that they would forget, so they wouldn't know their back history and they wouldn't have to live with that back history. In the same way, we can look at it and say, okay, well, with all this magnetic stuff that's happening to us, electrical, massive amounts of energy that's pouring in from the galactic center, what if it's affecting us the same way? We're all of a sudden having memories coming up. And it might not be memories of now. It might be memories of past. Or it might be memories of now, but not this now. Another now that's like, 2 nows over from us. Or 10 nows over from us. There's a lot of pieces here that are really interesting. Yes, Maury?
Yeah, Danny. going back to the movie and in line with what you're suggesting at the same time, it was mentioned towards the end. Yes, they experienced this stuff, and then most of them got a memory wipe. Basically, they forgot. Okay, but the guy did say some of us didn't. We remembered.
Some of us chose.
Yeah, or however that was. You got that. You know better than I on that one. But effectively, that point was made. And also, relative to today's, what we're experiencing here in the UU in particular, and across the world in other groups similar to us, and however that all goes, with the energetics that you just talked about, what's going on, I suggest is a great remembering is going on. Now, granted, it's still jerky and not in sequence, but that's what's happening, and it's not so much. It is in a way, it is an awakening, but I would call it, and this is a term that we used to use or hear a lot, the great remembering.
Remembering.
And I know you've heard that one, and I know everybody else in here has heard that. I haven't heard it much lately, but I want to bring that up. That is what's going on, and some people are ahead of others, and some people remember something that somebody else doesn't. But that's and again, that's tied in with the energetics going on that you're referring to. And I did want to, kind of bring that back to the movie and tie it in with what you're saying. And really.
This is just it. And it's not about, I don't want to say that, well, I will say it this way. It's not a race to the finish line. It's not about who remembers more, who remembers less, who has different experiences. And it's not like a hierarchical thing. Every single person is different, right? And physically, if you even talk about physically, we're all very, very different. And that's why you can see some people are far more effective by EMF, by Wi-Fi, by magnets than other people are. And all you have to do is talk to a doctor or a nurse who deals with MRIs. And they can talk about how people can have vast reactions to the powerful magnets and MRIs. So I think a lot of people are going through it. And I mean, there's also that heavy amount of programming and the shit that you get, programmed with continuously to not believe what you see, to keep it in and just say it's silly, it's a dream, it's not real. Deb said, a possibility why they're trying to screw up the planet's magnetics. I don't believe anyone is trying to screw up the planet's magnetics. I think that everything that is happening right now is part of it was part of a cycle. It's part of something that happens. It is happening. And I think that the quintessential they, as in your cabal, your black hats, if you will, on the planet, are doing everything in their power to try and prevent it, to try and, or at the very least, disguise it. And they can't, but they're doing what they can. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, of course, like the telling of the lies through the media, the bullshit that they don't tell us. There's something going on right now. There is something fucking going on right now. Major. And I'm not talking about just the stock market crashing, because it is, or the financial, or the politics, or I'm talking there is something the fuck going on right now. And they know. And I honestly believe that they're trying to prepare something, some sort of a plan to try and prepare for whatever this is.
I got a way of saying that, Danny, that might be helpful. It's bigger than the mundane.
Oh, much bigger than the mundane. Yep.
And they want to keep us at the mundane level across the board in as many different ways as possible. All those rabbit holes that you and I know so well about.
And keep us distanced and divided as much as possible. And this is why I'm saying, like, I can't go back and say it enough. I loved that Max Egan video because some of the shit that he said, I swear it was like he was taking it right out of my own mouth of like, we have to stop dividing, and bickering over stupid things like who's right and who's wrong and who's got the right narrative and no, your story's wrong and my story's right. And, And we need to come together, because this is a major, whatever's going on right now, it is tantamount that right now we all stick together and we come together and put aside all the fucking differences and all the bullshit and work through this. There's something going on. And I'm actually going to be rewriting this week my prepper article again, making sure all my links are lives in that, because I really, really want the unfuckers to be aware that, like, there's something going on and people need to be prepared. And that's not fear porn. That's called being practical. Being practical. People need to be prepared. I can't stress it enough at the moment. Because it's fucking weird outside, and it's only getting weirder. Yeah, people forget how to be practical. Absolutely. It's like we were commenting, and we had a running commentary going on through the movie there about people, something happens and everyone goes, eh! I'm like, what the fuck? Screaming doesn't do any good. Running around like a chicken with your head cut off going, eh! Does not do anyone any good. You pick up, you stay calm, and you just fucking do what you have to do. Right? And this is it. People have lost the ability to be practical. But I mean, to be perfectly frank, I mean, they've lost the ability because it's been what feels like a vast separation of generations. My grandmother, who went through World War II in England, and my grandpa were infinitely practical people because they lived through bombings and air raids, and my grandfather was a tank commander, so they lived through that, and they always carried that knowledge, that ability with them. But these generations, the generations now, are so far removed from anything like that, they have no concept of looking after themselves, just simply being able to look after themselves.
Danny, I'm glad you're bringing that up, because it feels, for me, the truth in that is that the more balanced we are within, the more we're able to do these things. It's not about the fear porn. It's about the practicality. It's not about the subtleties. It's like the subtleties is what I've been grabbing on to, because it is about the balance in thinking. It's not, like the polarization. Use one word and say, prepare, like you're saying. People that are attached to the word fear porn are going to poo-poo it, or then, it's being in the middle. It's being in that middle, that I find is where the truth actually lies.
Absolutely.
I think most humans do, Teresa. And that's the thing we got to be careful of, looking at the masses of humanity. I'm going to say the words, the ones that are tied into the matrix are not going to be untied from it. So, but you notice that the ones that are pulling themselves out, withdrawing, not contributing as much, that's what's going on. It's going on with a certain type of humanity. I would go so far as to say humans. And whether they're knowledgeable about all the stuff we're knowledgeable or not is secondary to the fact that at a very primitive or basic level, they're doing it in their own ways. They know, just like we know, something's amiss, something's afoot, to quote Arthur Conan Doyle.
Something is afoot.
We may not know exactly what it is, but it's across the board. The human beings, as we understand what human beings are, they know it. And in their own ways, they're doing things that are not necessarily visible to the mainstream. And the mainstream is still made up of people who believe in it, or whatever they are, who believe in it. And I dare say the NPC thing does have some sort of validity, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it, guys, for me. I'm going to head off. I've got to go to bed. I've got a busy day tomorrow. I got to be up early. My girls are dragging me out early in the morning.
Thank you, Donnie. Love you.
You're welcome, hon. I am going to be on Sarah Westall's show this month. I can't remember the day. I want to say it was either the 15th or the 17th of December. I can't remember the date, and I will remember and I'll tell you. And Sarah and I had a chance to chat through emails back and forth, and we're kind of on the same page with a whole lot of stuff. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So, yeah. We have to put up a poll for a movie for next week because, God forbid, we have no plans for next week for a movie. So we'll figure that out. I'll try and remember to do that tomorrow. Someone remind me if the poll's not up by the end of the day tomorrow. Hey, Danny, get your acting gear and, do stuff. Thor. Well, you know what? One of the movies that I suggested was we watch The Winter Soldier, which is the Captain America, The Winter Soldier, because that, again, is all about the programming and Hydra and the Nazi element and shit like that. And there's so much fucking truth in that movie. It's almost like when I watched it the first time, I was like jaw on the floor, like, I can't believe they just fucking said that. Holy shit. But of course, it's Hollywood, and everyone goes, it's Hollywood. It's just fiction. You think so? You think so? Starwalker, if you're talking to us, you're muted.
No, I'm thinking to myself, my mouth.
Okay, I'm just making sure that you knew. I was like, we can't hear you, darling. We can't hear you.
I was listening to you and thinking about what you were saying, like all this stuff they've been doing for generations, hundreds, a few hundred. Probably maybe even. No, it just.
I totally love you, dude. You're fucking original. I shift from watching D and watching you window, and it's just like I'm sitting here grinning. Thank you, guys.
Here's the thing. So I'm checking out because I'm tired and I got shit I got to do. I'm going to make Star host. Star is now host. And now you guys can keep on chatting.
I was just thinking real quick about how long maybe they've been telling us stuff in movies, even since maybe at some points in the silent movie era. I don't know. Could be.
I don't know. I don't watch. It's been years and years and years since I've watched old movies. So, anyways, I love you guys. I will chat with you later.
Good night. Rest well. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Love you.